Hi, my name is Emily Pearson and I am a Business Development Manager at Pinnacle Investment Management. And today I am joined by Dr. Peter Gardner, the Senior Portfolio Manager responsible for the Plato Australian Shares Income Fund. Thanks, Peter, for taking the time to chat with me today.
No worries, Emily.
Peter, I'd like to kick off today with the result from Woodside, the market response, and how it has played out in the fund.
Yeah, so Woodside, it was very strong results, especially compared with last year's earnings, given the increase in the oil price and the gas price over the last kind of 12 months. So its underlying NPAT was at $1.8 billion, which was 414% above last year, but that was around kind of market expectations. Obviously, the market knows what the oil price was, and they predicted a strong increase in profit. The interim dividend was also strong at 109 US cents versus 30 cents last year, an increase of 263%. Now that equates to a 6.4% gross yield for this dividend alone. So there's plenty of yield out there in the market, and we'll see that later on with Fortescue as well. They're still remaining fairly conservative in their payout, and they actually reduced the level of gearing that they're targeting through the cycle from 15 to 35% to 10 to 20%. So that basically means they're going to have less kind of debt on board. So they're fairly conservative in that regard, and that reduced the amount that they necessarily paid out, but they still did pay out about 80% of their earnings, which is in line with their target, because they're also spending more capex on developments in both Western Australia and Senegal. They completed their merger with BHP's petroleum business during the half, and they've actually said they've already generated $100 million of synergies, and they're targeting $400 million of synergies by 2024. So that's pretty strong on a profit result of $1.8 billion to be targeting $400 million of synergies going forward. Now, the amazing thing with the Woodside results is that their cash costs for bringing the oil kind of out of their oil wells is $8 per barrel. Their other costs are $6 per barrel, but the realized oil price was $96 per barrel. So they're just making incredible margins in the current environment, and hence their high profitability.
Thanks, Pete. And you just mentioned Fortescue. Do you mind running through the recent result there as well?
Sure. So it was also a pretty good result from Fortescue, in line with expectations, because once again, they're also very dependent on the iron ore price. However, for Fortescue, it was slightly different because the iron ore price from 12 months ago, you remember, was incredibly strong. It got to kind of $180 US a tonne, whereas it's now dropped to around the kind of $120 US a tonne. So their profit was at $6.2 billion US, which was down 40% on last year, but that was in line with consensus. They had a 61% margin, so their margins are also incredibly strong, just like Woodside's in the current market. The dividend declared was $1.21, which was 43% less than last year, which would normally be disappointing, but you can see that this actually equates to a gross dividend yield of 8.9%. So the market's not forecasting these high dividends and high iron ore prices for that long. Payout ratio of 75%, so also pretty good. And they're also continuing to invest more significantly in their future funds industry business.
Speaking of that future funds industry business, I personally really like what Fortescue is doing with regards to its green energy plans, but I do believe they are quite dependent on, iron ore prices staying elevated. What's Plato's views, here as well?
Yeah, so they've announced, that kind of a year or two ago, they were going to spend 10% of their annual profit on this Fortescue Future Industries. Now, at the moment, I don't believe the market is pricing anything at all, or something minimal for what they're doing at the moment. I guess the market's still remaining fairly kind of skeptical over whether it actually make money. But like you, Emily, I do hope that it does make money for them, and it does do really well, because obviously our planet needs more investment in these kind of industries. So they're investing $600 to $700 million in FY23 in these kind of green technologies. They're taking over a bunch of companies. They've got over 100 kind of projects on the go, which seems very hard for their kind of management team to arrange. But given their normal business is fairly straightforward, and they seem to be doing that quite well, their normal kind of profit is still very dependent on iron ore prices, and this is kind of like an extra tick that they could get if they do really well from kind of monetizing this green hydrogen.
Great. As always, Peter, thank you so much for your great insights. Again, those looking for, more information across bank reporting season, just please keep an eye out over the coming weeks to these videos. We also do have a webinar, a reporting season webinar coming up in mid-September, so please keep an eye out for the link as well. Thank you. as always, and have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Emily.